Welcome back to the show, everybody. We got a good one for you today. The great shakeout comes with a great transition. That's right. The world's moving to a new system. It's out with the LIBOR and in with the SOFR. And what, if anything, does it mean for Ripple or XRP? Well, I think there may be a there. Let's just roll the beautiful intro and get into this.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove, and everything that we're talking about here today. 1.5 trillion strong for the cryptocurrency space collectively. Bitcoin sitting right now at 52,000, floating back and forth at almost $1 trillion market cap. Yeah, how about that one? Here's what I want to focus on today. XRP 53 cents coming in right now at 24 billion market cap. Knowing that we're underneath the SEC Ripple lawsuit, we have seen the position go from number 3 for XRP almost down now to number 10 and beyond if this trend continues, now slipping to the number 7 spot. This is absolutely courtesy of the dereliction of duty from the SEC with the 7-year gap and lapse of their judgment and their enforcement, and now falling into a 7-year late lawsuit, right? And now we're at the number 7 spot. You have to wonder, you really have to start to ask I think it's a very credible question that this is, absolutely affecting the market and XRP, in such a strong way that you can point to nothing else, because the market has actually been moving even, regardless of the lawsuit. So you have to really lay it at the doorstep of the SEC that the reason we're in the number 7 spot is because of them, because market makers, I believe, are buying the asset. There's no question about it. And if this was not looming, if this case was not looming, and the indecision of it being alleged as an unregistered security wasn't hanging over XRP's head, I could easily see where people have said we could be between $10 and $30 just like that if we clear this up. And I think we do clear this up sooner rather than later. And when we do, I could easily see that and more. Obviously, you guys know I'm here for a 4 and 5 digit XRP. Just quickly, we are ranging right now, if I just let this refresh, between 52 and 55 cents. We want to see that 62 to 70 cent range. If it can get in there, it can, XRP can make that next push to the 80 cent dollar range. We can start having a conversation. There are some analysts out here right now that are calling for $2 to $6 XRP by the end of the month and around that time frame. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Let's get into this news really quickly and make it as tight as possible. The LIBOR and the SOFR. What is it? Why is it important? Is it important? All right, let's take it apart. This is coming from DJ Peter Vass, who's been on fire here lately. Look at the trend to transition away from LIBOR in the UK. This is the London interbank offer rate, right? So this is the standard interest rate for which people lend off of. And the problem is how it's calculated. We're going to hear more about that in a second from Sandy O'Connor, who left JP Morgan and many of the high-end international regulatory committees to really go to Ripple and pursue what she's doing there. We'll get to that in a second. But this LIBOR rate that's used all around the world as a base for where the interest rate is for lending and borrowing is really coming out of the UK. The UK is to consider safe harbor legislation. And what this basically is, in short, is they're saying that there is a complication. It's not as simple as people just take your bonds and everything you have that's against the LIBOR, and we just simply move you to a SOFR rate. Some of these contracts that are locked up at LIBOR rate don't have the legal verbiage necessary that would allow you to simply move your contract into a SOFR, which is the new secured overnight financing rate, which, by the way, wait for it, Sandy O'Connor, who's now at Ripple, helped to develop to replace the LIBOR rate. Now, she's going to explain to you very quickly why it is so important we transfer away from this. We went over this back in November, well, actually not November, but I think it was October, November of last year. But at any rate, let's take a look at this and let Sandy O'Connor, who's now at Ripple, tell you about the LIBOR rate, the problem with how it's determined, and why we need to move away with it. And then we'll get back to the articles here. Listen to this.
So let me just say, yes, I think it's feasible. And despite the fact that LIBOR is so well entrenched in the marketplace, LIBOR's younger than I am. So that's, it hasn't been around that long. Not quite when dinosaurs roamed the earth, so I think we can live without it. So what is the issue? The issue is this. The London Interbank Offered Rate, which still now exists across 5 currencies, 7 maturities, really was about where banks borrow and lend with each other in the short term. Remember my comment earlier? Do we borrow any money in the short dated anymore? No, right? Because guess what? You're all long funded now, so there's no real short-term exchange of funding between and among banks. And LIBOR existed when there were it was produced when there were a lot more transactions. And because it was sort of, what do we do when things are easy? We start referencing them, right? So this benchmark is now used. Anyone want to guess for how many in notional values? $200 trillion are referenced off of the US dollar LIBOR rate.
So there you have it. $200 trillion worth of products are referenced off of the LIBOR rate. You can see the difficulty and the complexities when you get into each individual set of contracts that these products are referenced off of that, and how they're inside of those contracts between those parties. It is not legally acceptable for them to break away from the LIBOR within it. It isn't that they couldn't renegotiate a contract. It's that the contract doesn't have the verbiage in it to move away from LIBOR to this new rate that now exists, which is the SOFR rate. Let's keep listening here.
How many transactions do you think happens in each day on average in 3 months, which is the busiest one? Any guesses? 5 trades. 5 trades are happening on average every single day. It is the biggest inverted triangle you've ever seen.
So you understand what she's saying here. She's saying in order to come up with this base interest rate, interbank rate, offer rate, there's only 5 trades that they're basing it off of each day now to come up with expert opinion and these 5 trades to average what this base rate should be for all of this 200 trillion. It's inverted triangle, like she said, and you're not collecting enough data, and you're leaving too much room for this quote unquote expert opinion. Let's keep going.
On average, its total value is about $500 million. Houston, do we have a problem? 200 trillion off of 500 million. So how does LIBOR get calculated? Well, you've got these panel banks that submit what they think LIBOR is, and it's supposed to be transactions based. Well, if there are only 5 transactions and there are 16 panel banks, not enough transactions to go around, my friends. So in fact, they have to use expert judgment. And therein is the instability of the rate. There is an awful lot of risk to use expert judgment on setting a rate for $200 trillion. So that's not really very good. So what did we do? Well, first thing, if you're going to transition away from something, what do you need? Something to go to. So this public-private partnership that has in place with public policymakers set up by the Federal Reserve.
Just real quick, notice how she covered her mouth just ever so briefly when she said this public-private relationship. Interesting. It's just a thing. You notice body language sometimes. Let's keep listening.
Reserve Board, the Fed, the CFTC, the U.S. Treasury, OFR. We came to the table to identify a new risk-free rate as an alternative to LIBOR for use in derivatives. And we came up with this rate called the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. It's a repo rate. It has transactions, daily transactions in the overnight of $750 billion every.
So now she's saying we've got a deeper set of liquidity and transactions to formulate a more accurate opinion about what the rate is based on more data and less expert analysis. Let's keep going.
Every single day. And it is now produced by the New York Fed. No submitting banks. No expert judgment. IOSCO compliant for those of you who are geeking out like I do and understand that that's a standard setter, and they tell you all the good characteristics of a benchmark that people are going to use. So it hits all of those wonderful things, right? Which is really, really good. But when you build a market, we have a rate. We got to now make this, and when the rate was born April 3rd.
Is that your birthday too?
No, but it's up there with my kids. April 3rd, we birthed the rate.
So April 3rd, they birthed this rate. They came together and figured out a way to get a more accurate rate and to get away from the LIBOR because it's so upside down in the way the data collection goes versus expert judgment and opinion. Now, let me just say here in this spot that why is this so important? Why are we following this LIBOR SOFR? Let me be clear. I don't feel like XRP is going to set the LIBOR rate or anything like that. That's not what I believe. What I believe is important about this LIBOR moving to SOFR is we need to be looking to see if while this transition is happening, because it's not just the UK talking about safe harbor legislation. No. It is the world. In fact, the United States Office of Comptroller of Currency has issued a self-assessment tool to begin to prepare for cessation of the LIBOR rate, which means stopping and ceasing using it, right? And that'll be moving to the SOFR rate. Why, again, is that important for us? Well, I think it's important, one, because we know that Michael Barr has been tapped to be the next head of the OCC, and Michael Barr is formerly of Ripple. Number two, the real interesting thing here is that what does the LIBOR rate get used for? Well, it gets used for $200 trillion worth of products, as you heard Sandy O'Connor tell you. So what does that mean? Listen, if we're moving to a new system, I could see a new rate. And guess what else I would see? I would see a new financial system being developed to move everything to. So this $200 trillion worth of products, in my eyes, needs to be tokenized, okay? And if you're going to do that, then you may be talking about something that is really tangible to me, right? They're getting ready for massive news, LIBOR calculating interest on US dollars, business recorder. And when I go into this, let me see, it didn't have a lot of information here other than it just shows the LIBOR for calculating interest on special US dollar bonds. But what I wanted to focus on is the bonds. Because the reality is, it's just like this article right here, which is what I wanted to go to. What? Kill LIBOR? Wow, amazing news. Campaign to kill off LIBOR is boosted by landmark bond sale. This is what it's going to take, okay? You have to tokenize the bond market and begin to move all of these products that are tied to the LIBOR. You're going to need that safe harbor that I just showed you that the UK is working on, because the legal verbiage is not in the contract to abandon the LIBOR and go to something new like the SOFR rate. To me, this is why it could be important. It isn't that XRP will set the LIBOR. It isn't that SOFR rate is so different from the LIBOR rate right now. They're very close if you look at the two rates side by side. Obviously, one is, declared to be more accurate. But the larger narrative here is that everything would need to get tokenized and move to a new financial system that is digital, right? So when I look at this, it remains entrenched, talking about the LIBOR, it remains entrenched in the financial system, even as key tenors are likely to retire at year end. Only a fraction of the 200 trillion derivatives market has moved over to SOFR, making it harder to build a forward-looking term structure. Now, when you think of how to understand that, in order to move this entire 200 trillion derivatives market, if you're going to move this over to a new rate, are we going to move it over to a new rate and keep it on the old payment rails and the old system? I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I see the fact that if you're going to be killing the LIBOR rate and moving to the SOFR rate, which is already, by the way, being used in places like London and other places around the world, and that's fine. And where applicable, they can use it now. But it's these long-term, years and years old contracts of these old long-term bonds that don't have the legal verbiage in it to allow them to get away from the LIBOR and move to another rate because of the verbiage itself in the contracts. So that's why I think it is really important to note that we're seeing places like the UK begin to prepare for a safe harbor legislation to allow this transition to happen. Now, the speculation in this is what? The speculation is that with Michael Barr being tapped for the OCC, right? And here he is right here, being picked by Biden to be the top bank regulator, right? Now, there is some pushback on that, but we'll see how that goes. And at the end of the day, knowing that Sandy O'Connor has helped birth, she told you, helped birth the SOFR rate to replace the LIBOR and is now over at Ripple. I can't help but think to myself, this is less about the rate and more about tokenizing all of these bonds of that $200 trillion market there onto the ledger. And if we do, then I would expect to see absolute fireworks when that happens. Now, that part is clear speculation for me. I want to be clear. But if there is something to focus on and any matter of importance between LIBOR and SOFR, it's not the rate itself. It's tokenizing the $200 trillion that's currently being measured by LIBOR and putting that on a new financial payment rail like the XRP ledger. That's going to do it for me. Hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Make sure you share with somebody you know. By the way, I wanted to give everybody a reminder. Unstoppable Domains has just connected with Google Chrome, Firefox, and some other search engines, Brave browser, and what is the other thing they had there? HTTP protocol for building websites. You can now connect and source your .crypto through all of those things, and that to me is exciting. Make sure you go get your .crypto from Unstoppable Domains. They just keep getting bigger. They are like GoDaddy on steroids. I'm telling you, it's very real. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and also make sure you understand that Cryptonaires, the film, is wrapping right now, and it has been picked up by a distributor, and we're very excited. I cannot give you a release date yet until we find out from the company that's picked it up, but we will tell you as soon as we know. We're so excited for all of you to see it. And the other thing I wanted to mention about it is everyone will be able to see the film for free. Get some of that. That's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Share with somebody you know. Hit the notification bell. Check out all the links in the description box and the comment section for anything you may want or need. They are trusted, vetted links. I'll catch all of you on the next one.